Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and in today's lesson, we're going to be discussing the overlap of faith and doubt. Now, to begin with, faith and doubt cannot coexist, at least not for long, in the same vessel. There's periodic bouts of struggle, and one of them emerges supreme. Now, one of the most remarkable things about salvation is that even though we all end up in the same place, no two paths are exactly alike. Now, the way to salvation is declared as straight and narrow, but in each of the saints and each of those who attain that blessed abode, there are inevitably and invariably detours of doubt and discouragement on the path. And we're going to be examining some of these, and the lesson we wish to reinforce is don't let doubts define you. Now, we should qualify the difference between a doubt and unbelief. A doubting person struggles to believe. An unbelieving person refuses to believe. So the unbeliever, who are declared damned, and rightly so, they become fixed in their doubts, and doubt becomes their default state of mind. Now, there's a lot to digest and a lot to absorb, and our faith asks a lot, and a lot of it is difficult, and rightly so. Yet if we express our doubts and honest doubts and have our honest intellectual inquiries in prayer, then we will not be disappointed, and we can use those doubts to propel our faith. And now, the type of faith that we have is declared, we read in 1 John 4:1, "Beloved ones, do not believe every spirit, but prove the spirits, whether they are of Elohim, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." Now, there is a chorus of competing voices representing various ideologies, religions, and philosophies which compete for our attention and try to attract our loyalty, but we are to examine them according to the Word, because that which is of Elohim is that which in the Word. So we should always hold the Bible and the Scripture as the measuring rod for each claim of each person making a claim which demands faith. And John 1:43-46, we read of the initial calling of some of the apostles, known as the disciples throughout the Gospels, but they would emerge as apostles by the book of Acts of the Apostles. And on the following day, Joshua wanted to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." And Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him whom Moses wrote of in the Torah and the prophets, Joshua of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And Nathanael said to him, "Is it possible for any good to come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." So with the acceptance comes an invitation precedes the acceptance, and the formula is repeat and manifest in our own lives. Now, there's a lot to digest. He was the fulfillment of the laws of Moses and the predictions of the prophets, and something like that was difficult to fathom, and he harbored regional prejudices against anyone from Nazareth or Galilee. And so he recited the vernacular current then against this claim for this mysterious itinerant preacher who claimed to be the Messiah. And now doubt is a constant theme throughout the Old Testament. Beginning with Abraham in Genesis 17:15-21, we read, "And Elohim said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, do not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall bless her, and also give you a son by her. And I shall bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of peoples are to be from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Is a child born to a man who is 100 years old? Or is Sarah, who is 90 years old, to bear a child? And Abraham said to Elohim, O let Ishmael live before you. And Elohim said, No, Sarah your wife is truly bearing a son to you, and you shall call his name Isaac, and I shall establish my covenant with him, for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. See, I shall bless him, and shall make him bear fruit, and greatly increase him. He is to bring forth 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah is to bear to you at this appointed time next year. Now that seems an odd claim to have a woman who's well past the childbearing age, being 90 years old, and Abraham being 10 years her senior, to conceive a legitimate child. The child of Isaac was conceived through Sarah's handmaid Hagar, who was an Egyptian, and their son Ishmael would become the father of the Arab people. But the covenant was invested in Isaac, and this was a promise which, if looking at the externals, he had reason to doubt, because what it seems a contradiction of the laws of biology and nature for so elderly a couple to conceive. Yet with Elohim all is possible, and he is in control, and a lot that he claims and promises seems difficult to accept, and yet we must. And he will make claims and promises which test our faith and provoke our doubts, but we are not to let those doubts be provoked to the extreme of unbelief. Remember the differentiation between doubt and unbelief. And Sarah continues this doubt in Genesis 8:10 through 15. And he said, I shall certainly return to you according to the time of life. And see, Sarah your wife is to have a son. And Sarah was listening in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah was past the way of women. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my master being old too? And Yahweh said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I truly have a child, since I am old? Is any matter too hard for Yahweh? At the appointed time I am going to return to you, according to the time of life, and Sarah is to have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, No, but you did laugh. So the name Isaac translates as laughter, and the mere thought that Sarah could conceive provoked a laughing response, which was rooted in doubt. And of course she tried to deny it, but there's no fooling Elohim. And so we reiterated much of what we touched on in the previous chapter. And Moses doubted his calling when he was raised as a prince of Egypt, and then he was told that he was to lead his people to liberty. He doubted his competence to fulfill the task. And this struggle is encapsulated in Exodus 3:9 through 12, which reads, And now see, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. And now come, I am sending you to Pharaoh, to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said to Elohim, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, Because I am with you, and this is to be the sign that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you are to serve Elohim on this mountain. So Moses in himself felt independently inadequate for this monumental task, but he had the assurance that Yahweh was with him, he would guide him and protect him. And another nature of his disqualification protest was that he was not a gifted public speaker, yet Aaron was assigned to him to compensate for that vacancy. And now the theme of doubt persisted throughout the Exodus period, when Moses actually was in the process of liberating these people to the promised land. Read of this in the first three chapters, in the first three verses of the 16th chapter of the book of Exodus. And they departed from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after their going out of the land of Egypt. And all the congregation of the children of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, If only we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to satisfaction. For you have brought us out into this wilderness, to put all the assembly to death with hunger. So the previous examples of doubt we examined belong to individuals. This is a collective doubt which plagued a nation on the move in the midst of fulfilling a purpose, yet they doubted the leadership. They thought that they had brought them there to die. And the litany of their complaints was they had a more extensive diet than the manna, which was a miraculous manifestation from heaven. So they preferred the challenges, they preferred the security of bondage to the challenges of freedom. And freedom often provokes our doubt and tests our faith. And we do have faith that each man is capable of utilizing his God-given agency to a productive and meaningful end. And the theme of doubt is continued in Gideon, of which we read in the 6th chapter of Judges, the 12th through 17th verse. And the angel of Yahweh appeared to him and said to him, Yahweh is with you, you mighty brave one. And Gideon said to him, O my master, if Yahweh is with us, why has all this come upon us? And where are all his wonders which our father related to us, saying, Did not Yahweh bring us up from Egypt? But now Yahweh has left us and given us into the hands of the Midianites. And Yahweh turned to him and said, Go in the strength of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? And he said to him, O Yahweh, with what do I save Israel? See, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And Yahweh said to him, Because I am with you, you shall smite the Midianites as one man. So, having been liberated from Egypt, they were in the Promised Land, and they had essentially exchanged native oppression on a foreign soil for foreign oppressors on their native soil. And what exchange was this? And they only had the faint memory of their ancestors, of the miracles of the miracle maker. So Gideon, from the outside looking in, had a lot to doubt, and he was cognizant of his own humility and his own weakness, yet seemingly unaware of the power of the one who called him, who was still capable of working a miracle as great as the parting of the Red Sea from him. And we read that an army of 300 slaughtered the Midianites, led by Gideon. And now he asked for a sign, and this provokes a question, because in the passage in the books of Matthew and Luke, the unrighteous Pharisees are condemned as an evil and adulterous sign-seeking generation. But why would the Father indulge Gideon's request and the Son deny such a one to the Pharisees? And the answer is Gideon's was rooted in humble awareness of his own weakness, whereas that of the Pharisees was rooted in an arrogant denial and disbelief in the divinity of the Son. And the theme of doubt is clearly continued in the New Testament, of which we read in Luke 1:13 through 18 to Zechariah, who after over 400-year lapse of prophecy was visited by an angel, and in spite of that unusual situation, he has causes to doubt. But the angel said to him, Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name John. And you shall have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth. For he shall be great before Yahweh, and shall drink no wine and strong drink at all, and he shall be filled with the Ruach Kadesh, even from his mother's womb. And he shall turn many of the children of Israel to Yahweh their Elohim. And he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the insights of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for Yahweh. And Zechariah said to the angel, By what shall I know this? For I am old, and my wife advanced in years. So in spite of the preceding promises, which are profound in themselves, and there's a lot to digest, they're really exceedingly profound promises. We read that his son is to be the manifestation alluded to by Malachi of Elijah and perform the ministerial function of turning the hearts of the sons to the Father. And yet he, in spite of this visitation from an angelic being and a divine promise, he's looking at it through the same eyes with which Abraham looked at his situation. He noticed that he and his wife were advanced the age of childbearing, and yet, and for his doubt, he was punished with being dumb until the birth of his son, after which point his voice resumed and he praised effusively as he should have begun in the beginning. And also, John 24:29, we read of Doubting Thomas, who earned that infamous nickname when he wasn't present, when the original 10 surviving apostles, Judas, had killed himself by this point, but had been witnesses to the resurrection. And what does he say to that? He says, "But Thomas, called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Yahshua came. So the other disciples said to him, 'We have seen the Master.' But he said to them, 'Unless I see in his hands the mark of the nails, and put my finger into the imprint of the nail, and put my hand into his side, I shall by no means believe.' And after 8 days his disciples were again inside, and Thomas with them. Yahshua came, the doors having been shut, and he stood in the midst and said, 'Peace to you.' Then he said to Thomas, 'Bring your finger here, and see my hands, and bring your hand, and put it into my side, and do not be unbelieving, but believing.' And Thomas answered and said to him, 'Master, and my Elohim.' Yahshua said to him, 'Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed.'" So therein we realize that the blessings for believing in spite of seeing, we are called to believe in the invisible entities of a person who walked the earth 2,000 years ago, who resides, we are told, at the right hand of the Father. And yet we are blessed for believing that in spite of the evidence, and we witness the negative end of the other side of the coin of this principle in the Exodus generation. The Israelites were so accustomed to and spoiled by the unique unprecedentedness of their witness of miracles that they had become desensitized to the miracle maker in their midst and had reason to doubt his love for them and his plan for them. And we also want to read Matthew 17:20. "And Yahshua said to them, 'Because of your unbelief, for truly I say to you, if you had faith as a mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it shall move, and no matter shall be impossible for you.'" So the power in which the power to move mountains manifest is not the faith per se, but in the object in which it rests. Yet that object cannot manifest in the absence of faith. Ergo, we owe it to ourselves to believe him and take him at face value in by the word when he says that nothing is impossible for him. And Jeremiah 17:10. We also read, "I, Yahweh, search the heart. I try the kidneys, and give to every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds." So one of the reasons I chose this topic as a lesson is I don't want some of you who are skeptical to the faith to doubt the potential to believe or be saved. And you will be judged accordingly. Now, it seems a lot to suggest that doubt is sinful and that faith is virtuous, yet we are justified by faith, we are told. And also, on a final note of encouragement, we want to read James 1:5-6, which reads, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of Elohim, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it shall be given to him. But he should ask in belief, not doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind." Therein we learn that we ask is not important how we ask. We are to ask in belief, and we are to take our doubts and confess them honestly and openly, because it is better to doubt out loud than to disbelieve in silence, because unbelief harbored in the heart can have permanent, irrevocable effects concerning the salvation of one's soul. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. Tune in next time. Bye-bye.